Greetings, everyone. It is in Pittsburgh. It's Monday, November 23rd, but in Singapore, it's Tuesday, November 24th. And we are really excited to have everybody together tonight. We've got a couple great friends ready to present and share a little bit of what they've been up to tonight. Um, Before we get into all of that, it's been our tradition just to say hi to each other for a little bit. And in order to keep it moving along, I'm going to send everybody into some breakout rooms. Actually, I should first introduce. My name is Stephen Neely. I'm your co-host of the virtual Dalcroze meetup. My wonderful colleague, Veronica Boleski, is my co-host. And Emma Shubin usually jumps in at a point as well, who I guess is also your tri-host. So what we're going to do now, though, is throw you all to the breakout rooms just to say hi to each other for a moment. I don't give you much time, so you can't get going a lot, but you're going to get a good 2 minutes to introduce yourself and say where you're located and who do you teach. Your name, where are you located, who do you teach? Ready, set, go. Hey everyone, welcome back. It's great to have everybody in the room and have you here. We have all kinds of great things to get to tonight. We've got some great presenters, and we just left a really wonderful masterclass by Eldenelli Trevino in Mexico just this weekend. And so hopefully we'll get a little bit of time to talk about what we experienced in that masterclass if time permits. I'm going to hand it over to Veronica, who I think will get us going.
Okay, so on the schedule, you may have been worried that there are only 2 more events left, but don't worry, we have some more planned for January. But of the ones that are like publicly scheduled right now, there's another meetup number 19 in 2 weeks, and one more masterclass with Andrew Davidson in about 2.5 weeks, or 3, December 12th or 13th. So we hope you can come, bring your friends, and we'll send out a whole new series of meetups and master classes with 4 new teachers starting in January.
And the roster looks awesome. I'm really excited about this next set of master classes. Shall we go
and
ahead?
Stephen asked if we could all sign in the chat. So if you could say where you're from, that would help us all. And then after that sign in is done, I'll repost the agenda for anyone else who just joined. Are there any other announcements, Stephen?
Whoop, I don't think so. I think we should.
Oh wait, I have one more. We have a Facebook group. We started it because some people asked us about it and said, hey, maybe we should do this. And we were like, should we be more present on social media? So I don't know if it's helpful or not. It's kind of up to you guys. So if you decide that Facebook is how you want to communicate in between and connect with people, then please feel free to use that. From what I know about social media, groups like this are alive because people post in them and respond to each other. So if I'm the only one posting, it's just going to feel like a marketing vehicle, and we already have, like the blasts coming through newsletter form. So please feel free to use that Facebook group and make it yours, and feel free like it's your space. And if it's not helpful, then we'll just stop using it.
Yep. All right, then tonight's agenda.
So we have a presentation from Cassandra Eisenreich, and then a presentation from Jill Gleim. And after that, we will discuss what they shared, and also we can bring in any reflections about Elda's masterclass. So without further ado, Cassandra.
I have 2 questions. One, we have 5 minutes, is that correct?
I think you negotiated with me for 10, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that because we had talked, unless you've changed your agenda, I think you were going to maybe talk about 2 different things.
Yeah, that's totally fine. And then can I share my screen? Do I have access to?
Yep, it should just work. If it doesn't, I'll double check it.
Perfect. Okay. Can y'all see this?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So I figured I'm going to tell you just a little bit about how I'm doing things a little differently. First of all, my name is Cassandra Eisenreich. I teach at Slippery Rock University, which is about an hour north of Stephen Neely, just about an hour north of Pittsburgh. And I'm on the music ed and performance faculty there. What I do on the music ed side of things deals with our musicianship program and our early childhood and elementary music methods classes. So it's a pretty diverse job, but it's everything that I love, and I'm really excited to be there. So I thought today I would tell you just a little bit about some of the early childhood classes that I organized. At the university, I run a community engagement initiative. I will tell you just a little bit about that. So basically, we have partnerships with organizations in and around Pittsburgh. So the biggest one is right outside of Pittsburgh. It's Early Learning Connections, which is basically a bunch of Head Start programs. We also have an affiliation with the preschool that's on campus at our university. We run the Eurythmics room at the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra Fiddlesticks concerts for kids. And Chase, when Chase was my student at Slippery Rock, ran some of those. So it's so good to see him on here. And also an affiliation with the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh, where we do basically make music sessions for them, or did. Anyways, so moving on, I guess one of the things that I wanted to bring up, you know, our classes are obviously not in person, but we moved everything to Zoom. And we decided to create, I guess, weekly themes, you could call them. And everything is based on this idea of interdisciplinary movement. So every week has a theme that kind of corresponds to what the children in the preschool classes have been learning. And so I spent some time when I first got to Slippery Rock learning about what the kids are doing in their daily classes, if they have any movement, are they singing, what kind of activities are they doing, that sort of thing. And so that helped me pick the themes, just to help be a little supplementary to what they're already doing in their classes and make connections. I was speaking to Carlos Abril, who is a huge figure in the early childhood world. And he said, Cassandra, if you're moving these things to an online format, what makes you better or different than all of the great children's programming that already exists out there? And I thought about that because I thought that that was really fascinating. Like, why would these kids have a class with me when they could watch Sesame Street and have all kinds of educational things? And my answer to that was the interaction and the student-led ideas that guided, you know, what I was doing. And so that was certainly, I think, a key element in the Zoom classes that we started running. The biggest thing for me, these Zoom classes are not individual families logging on so much as full classes. So typically the preschool kids that would come to school to have a class with me, we had about 20 to 25 kids. Now, the good thing is that we are actually reaching more kids, but we have about 6 or 7 classes at a time, each with 25 kids in them. So there's one video camera on all 25 kids. So we implemented the space in our place. We explore the space just right in our place because the kids could actually get really hurt. Typically, we have a large space at Slippery Rock where the kids can kind of move around. We have a nice piano in there, and that's certainly not the case at these preschool sessions. In addition to that, we're providing a lot of online additional resources that actually my students are creating to go along with the weekly theme to support it in you know, various music activities, which I'll show you in a moment. So that's just a little bit about who I am and what I do and what I'm going to talk about. And everything in all of our classes, I'm very big on singing, moving, playing, and then obviously connecting. I talked about that interdisciplinary approach. So you'll hear more about that as I go. So one thing I wanted to share with you, and I would love some comments later on your thoughts. The kids that we serve in our classes are very diverse. And actually our student body is really not at Slippery Rock. We're primarily white. And I think that it's important for the children to see themselves represented. And I wanted to create a character that would inspire them to do things and take this character somewhere. And so we all know about Bitmojis and how, all the, it's the whole craze. So I decided to create this character, and I was trying to find a gender neutral look, not too thin, not too big, needs glasses, and I was trying to find a name, and it just so happens that the name of our music department is the Swope Music Department. And I thought Swope sounds pretty gender neutral to me. And so I really wanted students to be able to identify with this character. I think the one thing that I'm missing is that Swope is able-bodied in every way. And so that would be the next thing that I would want to consider if I were to revise this and do it again. But there's this idea of intersectionality where everybody can maybe find a way to relate to Swope. And so the idea was to have kids go on adventures, not just musical adventures, but take Swope home, sing the songs we're doing in class, make videos with him, with the character, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to show you a little example. This was a little girl who went into nature and painted some trees so the deer would stay away from, so the humans would know not to go near the deer. I thought that was really sweet. Here's a little boy practicing his drum set with Swope. Just getting them away from the computer is really my goal, beyond the screen. And then here is a photo of, they obviously found some things in their home to create sounds with Swope. So it's just a fun activity that, that kids can identify with this character. And the one thing I just wanted to bring up that is a big thing with my students, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I have, when my students are teaching, they use the term guys all the time. And I have a problem with that, because I said, if you were to go and teach, a bunch of kids and you called them all ladies, how would that feel? And for some reason, we love to use this term guys when we refer to a group of people. And there are many other options that we have, like everyone, that's a great choice. And so I think that that's just something interesting that we've explored with this character. Moving on. So one of the main activities that I've been working on is this idea of a musical scavenger hunt. Now, as Dalcrozians, we all know about like the idea of creating some kind of story that children can move to and be creative. And that's obviously really exciting and really important, but I wasn't really able to do that in my classes because of the space. And so I started creating these musical scavenger hunts, basically with these things in mind. I've started developing them based on the seasons, not necessarily a holiday, because that doesn't always go so well in school settings, but I had the students explore everything that theme had to offer. So we talked about spring and what are things that remind them of spring. We create the story with or without the students, both really. You add music, and then I created a scavenger hunt sheet to go along with the story. And then the students go ahead and document their experience while taking Swope with them. So that's a very exciting activity. And I'll just show you, there's the document to go along with it. And I have a link here. I don't have time to play it, but I'll play just the very beginning. It's going to pull up my Facebook page, I believe, just so you can hear it. I think my audio is on.
Cassandra Eisenreich here from Slippery Rock University. Hope you will join me on a musical scavenger hunt celebrating spring. So let's get outside and take a walk together. Let's take a deep breath. Fresh air.
So it goes on. Obviously, you can hear how it's mainly piano. I actually recorded myself walking, so it sounded like we were in, walking together outside. But that was great because some kids took it outside and were able to do that, and other kids, were just able to stay inside and listen and create on their own. So that was a fun project that I'm working on expanding for other themes, of course. And kind of wrapping up here, I will tell you that in our outline of our classes, we always stick to a theme, a structure like you would imagine. We always have a hello song. We actually do an instrument of the week because I have field students in there with me. We do an interactive song, and then we do a goodbye song. And the hello and goodbye song are both songs that already exist based on what our students have created. And I'm going to show you a couple of videos of what our classes look like. They're very short, just so you can see what I mean by having. So these kids are all spread out. Some of them you can see in the video, some of them you can't. And then these are all my field students.
Hey, Cassandra, I think you shared your window. And so now that you've switched windows, we can't see anything.
Well, let me share again. How about now?
Love it.
Okay, I'll just rewind it a little bit. So you can see how right now they're kind of spread all around the room, but 6 classes there. There are around 25 kids in each class. And I'll show you one more. And this one is my favorite. One of the things we do just to explore in our space for our hello song and our goodbye song, we find different ways. I ask the kids to show me different ways they are saying, different ways to wave hello. How can we wave hello in different ways? And so we've had lots of different things. And same with how can we say good job in lots of different ways. So different way. Here's one of the ones we cut on video here. I thought this was cute. They wanted to do circles of clapping. And so it's been an interesting, couple of weeks, but the students have really been enjoying the classes, and the teachers on the other side of the screen are sitting there muting and unmuting when we ask the students for their perspective and what they think and what they want to add to the song, that sort of thing. And that is my time. So thank you for listening, and I hope there was something interesting there that you could take from that. That was one of our ways. What else can we say?
And we'll give you this one too. Thank you.
Exactly it. That's exactly
so
it.
much good stuff. We'll discuss it in just a few minutes.
Thank you.
Let's hear from Jill.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Jill Gleim, and I'm a dancer who's studied eurythmics for a long time, but never got certified. But started, is that okay, everyone? But
Of course. Well,
but I started a dance school long ago, at which I used Dalcroze as the base of my method. And during the years, the 25, 30 years that I taught, I had parents giving me feedback that their children were getting better at behavior, were having more confidence, were whatevering. And I was going to Leslie at the same time and studying. And then I got into primitive reflex integration and neurodevelopmental movements, and started understanding that the movements I did repetitively to music, to a beat, like we do at Dalcroze, were organizing children's systems, making them feel more comfortable to identify, connecting them with their bodies so they could access the usefulness of their body. Most of the behavior, I think I've said this on this format before, that children exhibit when it's uncomfortable is they are uncomfortable in their bodies. And that's why they strike out and run into walls and bang their heads. But if you get, I'm going to tell you about Tommy. I have no screens to show you anything. It's just me and some ideas. A little Tommy kid who came in, my rule was always, if you come in and don't run away, I'm going to keep you here with us. And this kid would just sit in the room. And I've had many like this since, who just watched. And he was just too afraid to get up and move because his world would be crazy, but he was involved. And every once in a while, I'd scoop him up week after week. I'd try to get him involved. One week, finally, I held his hands. We walked along while I'm doing a rhythmic walk. I'm singing a little tune. And he holds my hand. We're walking along. And then he sat down in the circle for the first time. And at the end of the class, he came up and gave me a big hug. And that was when he landed in his body. And he knew, he felt who he was. So then I started looking at children and their development, and we all develop through these reflexes as babies. We all do the same movements, but some of us miss stages that then when we start developing, we compensate. So that creates the sensory problems and the behavioral problems, the cognitive problems, the functional problems. And through working with rhythm, which you guys do with Dalcroze, you're not just teaching music, you're really integrating people's whole bodies and minds. However, what kind of movement we do could be better assessed. We could bring in, which is what I do, the developmental movements of cross line, cross lateral, crossing the midline. I'm sure you've heard that terminology. But it's all about rotation, rotation. And as you give kids these ideas, they are crossing their midline. I heard teachers say there's 16 rotational points in our bodies. It's not just going right to left. So it's our wrists and our spine, our upper spine, our thoracic. So finding movements that mimic those developmental movements, really integrate, develop attention, help kids focus, make them feel more confident. So I thought I would just take, I have no screen, like I said, and I don't even have music except my singing. I'm going to show you some of my general things I see with children. If everybody wants to stand up for a minute, I'm going to just do a few movements where when I ask children to stretch up, they typically will go like this. So, but then if I say to them, can you really reach up? What happens in your body when you reach one side and the other side? Notice what's happening. When I ask children to notice what's happening, they're going into their body. They're focusing inwardly. They're not just watching me, but they're also feeling what that's like. Then we go side, and I have them shift their weight. They bend their knees. I always have them bend the knees and shift their weight. Just doing this, we talked about last week, brings in the different connections that the body needs. Then we go down and we go forward. Then I ask them, just play with those a little. Now let's go up again. And I have them stand and we count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we go side and we make sure we shift our weight. And then we go down. And so those kind of things. And I make it more complicated where I'll have them start to twist and cross their body. And in 1 second, I can assess what children missed a certain milestone. Then I have them use their eyes to look up. The eyes connecting with our movements are incredibly important to our development. It's eyesight is a lot of what the problem is, right? Going down the diagonals, good. And then twisting. To look behind you, take your head and look behind you. Sure you look behind you, Veronica. Are you looking behind? There you go. And that finishes off the rotation. Excellent. So those kind of, I mean, when we are working with teaching the music with the children, how much are we actually looking at the quality of movement they're doing? So when I create my 1, 2, 3, 4s, I can assess my kids right away and evaluate them week after week. This is in person. It's hard when we're on Zoom, and I haven't done that this semester. I sort of took a sabbatical, forced sabbatical, chosen, I'm not sure what. But anyway, so here's a little thing, an example. How much time do I have left?
1 minute.
Just 1 minute? All right, so here's the rotation of the head. Here's the rotation of the wrists, the arms, the body coming around. And then I have this little song where I sing, roly, roly, roly. Do you know this? Roly, roly, roll. Do it another way. Roly, 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 roll. Then we rock, rock and rock, rock and rock, rock and rock. And then we're going to row our boat. Row your boat, row, drop your head and look up. Row and row your boat. So if I get the children on the floor to roll, and grown-ups don't want to roll. I'm not going to bother getting there because I don't have the time. But children will not roll. And what I know is if you're working with the child and they don't want to roll, you need to help them. You need to connect with them. I love Cassandra talking about connecting. The whole thing, we don't want to fix what they're doing. We want to connect with them, help them feel the ease and the smoothness of what it feels like. And then once they trust it, they will have that sense of that they can roll. What's more fun than rolling? So you understand, I'm working with natural movements that babies do when they're little and bringing them into dance steps that you are repetitively doing with musical cues and the Dalcrozian games, the follow, the echo. Okay, that's all.
So much, Jill.
Thank
I
you.
can tell that you probably could write a textbook on this and fit it into 5 minutes is a.
I know, that was what I said to myself. What do I do? I have so many other things I could tell.
Well, and I think this is where we open it up for questions, right? Because what you guys want to hear more about, we have these two lovely women who are here to answer our questions and discuss with us.
There's so much richness in here. I love just both of you. Thank you so much for sharing some of what you were doing. I could talk nonstop for the next 45 minutes and have no trouble commenting on all sorts of stuff from both of them. Somebody else start to talk so that I don't take over. What do you want to ask about or comment on? Jeanette and then Dawn.
So I want to ask you, very interesting, these developmental movement, so for somebody like me who don't know a lot about it, what do you advise to learn, and like how do I connect what I know of like movement, just from Delcro classes to particularly these developmental ones for children, for example?
Right. So this is what I'm developing right now is a program that outlines those, but I base them on, if you just go to child development and look at when a child comes from lying down to sitting up, to crawling, standing, to walking, what movements, what bones, what muscles are being used when that's happening? But then there's the other things of the looking and the swinging. So if I tell you, look up developmental, look up rhythmic movement therapy. There are people online, but they're kind of hard to understand if you don't take courses, That's why I just addressed you to the developmental milestones that we naturally all go through. What children do when they're little, they roll, they jump, they swing. They pretend to fly. I mean, all the things Cassandra was sort of encouraging are the greatest, even if they're not even moving, they're all just sitting there. They think they're doing it. Those kind of things can develop function, just even thinking about it. But it is best breath, posture. There's just so many things to teach children their bodies are tools. And that's not how I was brought up. You need to breathe to relax. Self-calming techniques are fabulous things to work with little children in. Using the seasons, bringing all that connectivity of ideas that Cassandra was talking about. Oh gosh, it's just hard for me to, how about, Veronica, I send you all the different methods that I've explored. And we
Sure,
put that
yes.
into a newsletter.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think you know what keywords to search for, right? Most of us probably don't even know where to start. And so even that help would be greatly appreciated.
I wish I could just give you my program right now.
Well, let us know when it's ready and we'll be happy to support it and come learn from it.
Good. Dawn and then Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Cassandra and Jill. It's great to see what people
Dawn.
out there, innovative and creative. Developmental movement, I studied a lot of it and I really love it. And there are two resources that Jeanette and others can access that are pretty clear, I think. There's the Anne Green Gilbert material. Do you know about that, Jill?
Yeah. All these people. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been going on for a very long time.
Yeah, she's been doing it a long time. And Anne Gilbert, she calls it brain dance. It's
she does brain dance. That's it. Yes. Brain dance is awesome.
And she has researched it pretty, she talks about the science pretty
There's
well.
brain gym, brain dance.
Even though there's still like this disconnect between the medical profession, I think, and the people that are studying this wonderful therapeutic movement material.
No, but there has been, and you guys are gonna love this, a paper just came out. Melio is his name or something, and it's so weird. Interactive metronome. There's no movement involved. It's all just rhythm. So that's not the movement aspect of it. But I thought he is proving that having rhythm in your body helps organize you. So yes, thank you. Brain dance, brain gym is a great one.
And the other one is the Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen's work.
My favorite.
Which is
Danielle.
Which is called Body Mind Centering. Just those are resources. I'm putting them in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dawn. That's great.
Welcome.
Chris?
Hello. Thank you to our two presenters. The topic of diversity in the classroom came up briefly, and I'm excited. I know many of us teach outside of the school setting, and I'm always interested, what makes a parent bring their child to an experience like the ones that Cassandra and Jill offer? I wonder, maybe they could just comment on, when you have a diverse population coming into your classroom for a diverse set of reasons, do you have any experiences of like those different agendas kind of interacting with each other in an interesting way?
Cassandra, you want to speak?
Sure. I think without getting too much into it, I think the important thing is, wherever you are, is to get to know the community that you're in and be as culturally relevant as possible. I think it's important to get to know the music that the community is listening to, that the students are listening to. I taught in Miami for several years, thinking I could push my own agenda, go in there and sing Lucy Lockett Lost Her Pocket and like just grab the kids immediately and they're going to love everything that I do. And that just wasn't the case. They were listening to, I was teaching a trumpet class and they wanted to play Beyonce. And I said, no, 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 we have to do, we have to do our 3-note songs and then our 5-note songs that we know. And that changed. I think teaching in Miami and getting my butt kicked by those kids was the best thing for me, because it taught me to stop trying to push my own agenda and to really listen to the students and understand what their interests are. I'll never understand their culture because I didn't grow up in it, but you can certainly take time to get to know what they're listening to and the culture that they've been brought up in order to best reach them and then keep them engaged in your class. I think that's really important. And that's, without going off on a huge tangent, I'll definitely, and that's kind of why SWOPE became a thing,
I love SWOPE. I love that.
I love SWOPE too.
Very good. Other questions or comments or follow up on any of that?
Chris, I don't know if that answered your question at all, but I had to get my butt kicked by those kids. I was not going in there sunshine and butterflies. It was definitely a learning experience.
Well,
I've been part of some after school programs where, and I hate, there's not a nice way to say this, they keep the rich kids and the poor kids separate. Not just separate rooms, separate nights. Monday and Tuesday is for the paying kids. Wednesday and Thursday is it's for free for you kids. And the few times where I've gotten everybody to be in one room, it was always so fascinating. But I found that the educators in particular were like, ooh, which direction do we go? And I was thinking in particular with the PSO thing, and maybe with Jill's teaching too, you get the mixed population and what a gift, but also what happens?
Well, I'm just going to say that it all depends on how you approach them. If you approach them like, oh shit, that's basically the problem. But if everything's possible, teachers do what they got to do, right? And again, I'm going to go back to connecting, what Cassandra was talking about, that making connections for the children, giving them ownership, asking them what they want to do, not telling them what they're going to do, not dictating, being a facilitator, allowing for kids not to if they don't want to, letting them know, come on in. And those kind of signals go out to the parents. Those go into word of mouth real fast. Jill's a person who allows all kinds of kids into her classes. She puts up with a lot of kids. And it's not that I'm putting up with them, I'm connecting with them.
I think the other thing I might add to that I learned throughout the years, the expectation for me when I was teaching elementary was that everyone would sit early on in my career, that everyone would sit crisscross applesauce. We're all going to be in a circle. That was the expectation, whatever, 15 years ago. And then the more I taught, the more I realized just because a kid isn't sitting the way that you expect them to sit doesn't mean they're not learning. And so now, where my expectations in my preschool classes, kids are allowed to sit how they want to sit, as long as they're not disrupting the learning taking place, in the class, and that they're safe and not putting anyone else at harm. As long as those rules are being followed, I'm fine with however they choose to, take in the class, the information, the experience. Exactly. I think that was an interesting thing, again, that I was never really taught. It was just something that I experienced along the way and realized they were actually more receptive to what I had to say and the class that I was trying to give when I was just more, aware of what their needs were.
Well, and allowed them their needs, allowed them to then be aware of who they are. If we're always telling them sit still, they'll feel like, oh, I'm bad just because I'm not sitting the way I should. They want me to. So you have a good instinct, Cassandra.
She's the best. Actually, this whole crowd, I've just been so pleased to meet all of you and to be hanging out with you for these, for these months. This idea of letting the kids sit the way that they sit, or allowing them to participate or not participate, as they need. I have always felt that all of that type of attention was very much in the DNA of our Dalcroze specific work. And of course, it exists in a lot of really outstanding teaching situations, in or outside of music or Dalcroze or not. But in the Dalcroze classroom, especially with the young kids, we have this common exercise. Some version of it is, who's got something to show today? Maybe I gave you a model, and so today we're doing bug movements, or today we're going to be animals, or today we're going to climb a mountain. But whatever the theme is, it's still, there's this sort of a common version of these things that our teachers have been doing for decades and decades, which is, who's now, what animal do you want to show, or what bug would you like to be, or what way would somebody like to show us how to get across the room? And the student then gets to choose to participate or not, and what wacky, crazy, or really conservative thing they're going to show. Like, they could be anywhere on the spectrum, and we always just accept it. And then not only accept it, but we accompany it, and then we compliment
Yes.
it, and then everybody does it. So it's not like, boy, weirdo over there, they did that, we're now going to ignore them while we get on to the actual lesson of the day. That is the actual lesson. And so we're constantly, like, built into, I believe, one of the oldest sets of practices that I'm aware of with the little kids is just this kind of like rough model that says, what do you want to show me? Let me accompany it, which of course validates what you're doing. And then let's all do it, because we're really going to validate it as worthy, as artful, as exciting, as powerful, as the beginning of something. And then who I've always thought were the best teachers then not only can do that, but then can also spin it just a little bit further. And so then we evolve it, and we help the child realize how far it could go, or at least how much further it could be. And so that kind of an assumption of a relationship with our students. And we do the same thing. I do the same thing with university students. I mean, it's in what we're doing. That kind of relationship and assumption, I just think, is so powerful, and it's so much a part of what makes some of these ideas extra than other ways that that we know. Because there's other models for a basic childhood lesson that's really similar to that, but really doesn't go that far. Doesn't go far enough to say, no, actually, come up with the craziest thing you could possibly come up with, and there's no way you're going to freak me out. And I will not only acknowledge it, I'll accompany it, and I'll do it with you. And that is, I just think that's not actually common everywhere. Jill?
Well, no, it's not common at all. And this is back to last time we met we talked about collaboration and of different modes of art. And that's what we're working in. I don't really think we even know how valuable what we do is sometimes.
Yeah.
The fact that you accompany them. I mean, we can all walk around like bugs, but then to suddenly have this amazing sound that comes from out there that we weren't expecting, that accompanies our movement, is thrilling.
Yeah, I think of it as a kind of an amplification, not a volume amplification, but like an energy amplification. Where I was being a bug, and now all of a sudden I'm some sort of like super bug, because
A
there's
dancing bug.
there's this sound in the room, and there's this, and it somehow matches me. So it validates.
And who else can make a bug sound to play for that? It goes forever. There's just so many options once we start bringing the visual, the musical, the dance, the painting in.
I think one of the most powerful things you said, Stephen, was, there's a perfect example of this that happened. It happens multiple times in my field experience with my students. One of my students was running, the theme was nature. And she said, okay, we're all outside. And I was just observing at this point. She said, we're all outside. Like, what do you see outside? And one kid said, dinosaurs. And she said, no, dinosaurs, they're not with us right now. What do you see outside? Like, if you look outside your window. And afterwards, I mean, that's a perfect example. If you have an agenda you're trying to push, and a kid sees a dinosaur, you put your goggles on, or your binoculars on, and you talk about what that dinosaur looks like, and how that dinosaur moves, and how we could pretend to be that dinosaur. And I think that concept blew their minds. And that's something that I think, as we are so much about the creativity and what the students are bringing to the table. I was doing Another example of this, I was doing a childhood tune, Charlie Over the Ocean. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but kids get to pick something that they find in the ocean, and I let them move that way, and then I accompany them to the song. And one kid, they get to choose what they find. And one kid said, I tell them, like, whisper in my ear, what did you find in the ocean? Don't tell them, they'll have to figure it out. And one kid said, an Oreo. And I said, well, you know what? There's probably thousands of Oreos in the ocean. I mean, they're overboard on some boats. I'm sure there are Oreos in the ocean. So we're going to sing about that. And I think that that's a testament to the training. I mean, obviously studying at CMU and working with all this time, it's just something I think really embedded in our work that I would not have had otherwise. So I think that that's, Stephen, exactly what you were saying, just like going with their creativity and building upon that is so powerful.
Yeah, it's really great. I thought of one other thing at the risk of talking too much this evening. Excuse me, sorry. When Jill was talking about the cross line, the different motions, and that the class was doing it together, and that it in some way was helping to organize the child, for them to self-organize, like to organize their being, and to sort of be more in touch with what it means to be in this body. That is very sort of historic in the work. Jacques Ocros himself talked a lot about this mind-body connection and about, I always forget the term. Does anybody know the term? That I don't know if Selma's still here or Dawn maybe would know, but he has funny wording from early 20th century wording that means these things, but it's like it's not the smoothing of the aura at all, but it's like there's some like 1910 wording that kind of means we're getting y'all together over there, like you're gonna bring it into it's like your countenance, or I forget, there's some word, I always forget it at the time I need it, but he spoke of this idea, which really is the same thing, saying that it's possible to, the way I word it with my own students is this idea of being out of sync with yourself. So we spend a lot of time trying to be in sync with the piano, or in sync with our moving neighbor, or in sync with our stand partner. And those seem to be obvious places where we can be in sync or out of sync. Like it's easy to be out of sync with my stand partner or out of sync with my conductor. But long before we ever have to deal with any of that, we really have to start to be noticing of, are we in sync with ourselves or not? And my university students are constantly out of sync with their own body, constant. Mm-hmm. Like we spend tons of time pushing them again through the paces and then noticing, hey, did you just, right there, let's do that again. Did you see what you just did right there? Completely. I do these swaying exercises, and nearly every class, I bet I could find somebody who conducted a 4 pattern, but only swayed 3 times in the space of their 4 beats. And they were swaying. They're swaying the beat. And then all of a sudden, sync. And all the more so with the children. We got 9 minutes. Who else? What do you want to say? Marlene and Veronica.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you find this interesting. Well, I'll share a connection that I just made from my life experience. I started when I had my child, I was teaching, this was 30 years ago, early childhood music. And I studied whatever was out there, kinder music and music garden. And in my studies, I became in contact with Dr. T. Coulter, who is a neuroscientist who attached herself to our Early Childhood Music and Movement Association. And I studied a lot with her. And what I learned, what I gleaned from being exposed to her brilliance was, she'd say, do you ever see a kid that is leaning over the armchair of a sofa? And I would say, yes. I started teaching early childhood in my living room, and I had picnic blankets all over the living room. And it was very casual, very structured, but there were patterns that children would, that were apparent. There would be one child that was always laying flat and his head was cocked up. He always had to lay flat. Another child was always leaning over the arm of my couch for pressure. Another child was always sitting with her heels pressing on her spine. And Dee Coulter explained to us that when you see children with those type of patterns, positions, that they are energizing. If the child's feet are pressing on the hip of the spine, it's energizing their body, and that's helping them to pay attention. And the child who's on the floor, planted on the floor with the head cocked, that's how that particular child can take in what's going around. That's what settles him. And
Right.
what you know is that when I've had some really rough classes in the inner city, trauma, kids who have been not attended to, and they enter my class, same thing. I've had one child would come in, he was a giant, he was 6 feet. He'd have to roll across the floor. This was the band room, back and forth. And when he was ready, he'd come up and do whatever I wanted. It was really, you just kind of connected those two environments for me, but it was quite successful. And I have taped some of these classes, and it's, I was even astounded. It was, you just let them take their own natural position, and there's something to that.
Very
Can you
good.
say that, Marlene, can you say the name of that person you were?
Dee Coulter, D-E-E, Dr. Dee Coulter. I have quite a bit of her research. Coulter, C-O-U-L-T-E-R.
Thank you.
So
Thank
those
you.
kids are all self-organizing. They're organizing themselves, and that's why Cassandra is right when she says they can sit however they want.
Yes.
And then otherwise you're yelling at them all the time.
Yeah.
Or
Veronica,
other things. Yeah.
Veronica, did you want to jump in?
I just had a question for Cassandra about teaching multiple classrooms. And so you have
Thank
a bunch
you.
of kids on a Zoom box. It just, in the levels of online teaching, I feel like you've unlocked some next level. Just curious about what is different in that setting versus, I assume you must do a lot of university classes where each student is in their own box. So what's different when you have 6 to 10 kids in a box and multiple boxes of that?
Yeah, I think what's hard to what's hard to see is that not every kid is always on the screen. Like I think they try and rotate the screens, the computer around, but I think really trying to engage the kids in every classroom. So for instance, if I were to do a song, and I could just do one right now, but if I were to do ask a question like what body part should we do next, instead of asking the question and then waiting for the answer, I'll say, oh, Miss Veronica's class, what body part should we do next? And then as soon as they hear the teacher's name, the teacher will unmute, and the teacher, I've set it up so the teacher selects the student in the class, because we have sometimes 150 kids at a time, sometimes 100. I mean, there's just so many kids. I don't know everybody's name, and I'm actually not, I'm not provided access to everybody's name because for legal issues. And so we've set it up. It was kind of rough, at the beginning with the teachers I think they thought it was going to be like, oh, you have my kids for 35 minutes. I'm going to sit back. And I said, oh, no. So there was lots of muting and that sort of thing. And the other thing I would say that's kind of different, sometimes I would actually pick somebody out. So there would be kids doing certain movements. Like if I would say, show me how you want to wave. We sing our hello song every morning, and I always ask them how they want to wave that day. And I'll pick somebody's wave, and they try and get super creative. And there's always somebody in the back doing something. Like I remember there's a kid going like this, and I thought, oh, how cool, look at that. Everybody look, let's try to wave like this. How small can you wave, right? And so, I think just and that's one thing I told my students. Again, I keep talking about pushing an agenda, but I keep telling them, like, keep your eyes open. Even though you're teaching on Zoom, you still need to be looking around for like the little things and what the students are doing and how you can bring that to life. And I guess the second thing I would say is basically the same for live classes, which, you have to have really great transitions. Dead space equals, can I go to the bathroom? dead space equals I'm moving away from, I'm gonna roll away from the camera and go pick up a toy that's literally 2 feet from me because I'm surrounded by things that are overly stimulating. And so I think that in combination with your distance to the camera when you're trying to reach that many kids, and like always saying the teacher's name and like telling them you have your eye on them, and so you're not just always at a distance moving around or running the class. Those are all things that have certainly helped me, but I'm not sure if that would be helpful to you, but it's been a wild ride. But I love the babies. I love them.
Awesome. Thank you, Cassandra.
Jill?
So Cassandra, you're saying you can't say the children's names, but you identify them by what you see them doing? Oh, let's do it like the one doing that.
Yeah, so I'll usually say, you know, oh, I love the person with the blue shirt. Can we find the person with the blue shirt? Yeah, legally, because these kids have not, it's through a Head Start program and it's government, you know, supported, and there are all kinds of issues. The kids that come to campus for the in-person class with me sign a ton of paperwork, but there were so many classes that wanted to be involved now that they didn't have to have like the bus to travel to the university, that there were just too many issues to actually get them signed up and have the paperwork. And it was either let them all do it and have no information other than numbers, or let no one do it. And I was like, we're all doing it. So
good for you. Bravo.
Oh man, I want more time with both of these presenters. But it is on the hour. We've been together for an hour tonight. And like we say every time, we try really hard to respect everybody's time, to start on time and end on time. So please reach out. You can find Cassandra Eisenreich, Dr. Eisenreich at Slippery Rock University. If you have questions for her, or you can also contact Jill through us. Jill, I don't know, do you also have an online presence?
It's through my camp, Arts All Day.
There you go. If you want to put any contact information in the chat there, Jill, there's just so many ideas. We easily could have spent another couple hours with both of you, just to, you know, to get all the things out. But I will just say thanks to everyone. Thanks, Veronica. What announcement we got? Closing announcements. What's coming up?
Sign up for Andrew Davidson's masterclass and see you at the next meetup.
Yeah, Andrew Davidson works with adults. He works with university students. He's a dramat. He's a staging director, an actor. He teaches acting classes, and he's a candidate for the Diplôme Supérieur in Geneva right as we speak. And so he's a cool guy, and I'm really excited. He's in London or England somewhere. So we will all look forward to seeing him, and we'll hope to see all of you back for the next VDM. So thank you, everyone.
Cassandra and Jill. Really wonderful presentations.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks, Nobel. I'm sorry we missed you. Where are you located? Will you unmute and tell us where you are?
I'm in Hong Kong right now, Stephen.
In Hong Kong.
Yeah, I'm teaching in Hong Kong. I see a lot of people here, familiar people. Adriana is my professor before. I see Shumei. I see Janet from Canada. I met them in Longy before. I attended Longy with Lisa.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, it's great to meet you, and we'll hope to have you back next time. If you go, yeah, if you go to our website, you can find the calendar, and it'll tell you all the days and times. And we try to schedule half of our events so that people in Hong Kong don't have to wake up in the middle of the night.
Yes. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks. You.
I miss dark rose. I miss dark rosing with everybody.
Well, you'll come on back. We're getting a little bit, a couple times a month.
It's still on. Longy offers online courses, but I wanted to experience more physically dark rose than doing online activities for eurythmics.
Right.
So I'll come back in Massachusetts next time.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay. All right, folks.
Waiting to hear.
Oh, good morning to you. Yes.
Good night there. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Good night or good morning.